What's up, everyone? Bobby here on the Free Minds Thrive podcast. So happy to be here again for a new episode. I haven't had a new episode here in quite a while, so I'm really happy to do this. You know, sometimes my life gets the best of me, super busy with other things, and I just have to carve out the time to deliver content here. It's a format that I'm very interested in. That's why I started the podcast. It's a format I think is important for people who, quite frankly, might never cross paths with me any other time. You know, you might not join Free Minds Thrive as a student in one of my classes or as a client in my coaching program. You might not ever buy into any of the things that I'm offering. And this is a way for me to get some of these ideas out for your consideration if we never cross paths anywhere else. And I think that's so important. If you're somebody who has something that can help people, to yes, find a way to make a living from it. Yes, find a way to know your worth and your value and charge for it. That's the world we live in. That's how we exchange value. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with charging people for things. But if you're doing well enough, and even if you just want to do good in the world and expand your sphere of influence and help more people and be of service to the world around you, find a way to offer something for free, even if it's just an experience that you've had or knowledge that you've gained in your journey in this life. Find a way to offer it. And this podcast is one of the ways that I do that. So I'm just happy to have you here with me listening. And today I want to talk about something that has come up for me quite a bit recently. I noticed that people, they kind of leave a little bit of a backup plan for their main plan so that they have a place to run back to or over to if the thing they really want to do in their life doesn't work out, or if the thing they want to do in a particular situation doesn't work out, right? It's like you get into a relationship and you have a backup plan for if it doesn't work out. Maybe you have a backup person or backup people, or you just think, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just go and try it again with somebody else. And so it gives you an out. And one of the problems with having an out is it makes it a little bit easier to get out. It makes it a little bit easier to allow the outcome that you desire or that you claim to desire to not materialize. That is to say that you don't have to put all the work in to make it happen because you're like, hey, I've got an out. Now, I brought up a relationship example. I can speak directly to that and many other situations like this. But on the relationship front, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. No matter what we ever went through, no matter what our experience was like and what came up and tried to get in our way, no matter how many times either of us probably could have chosen to walk away, we always doubled down on making it work because we decided early on there is no other option. And that changes everything. Imagine if there is no other option but to make it work out as best as it possibly can. In most situations, would that be a good thing? This is a question for you to ask if immediately an example is popping up in your head. Now, I brought up relationships, so it's possible you're thinking, oh, relationships, my relationship that I have with a friend or, maybe a romantic relationship or whatever the situation is. You're thinking of your relationship. But this can go any number of ways. It could be relationships like we're talking about now. It could be a business you start. Could be a business you start or a new career you jump into. And if you jump in half-assed and you jump in and you're kind of like, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'll just hop around somewhere else. If you're already thinking that up front, or you're already planning for that as soon as the waters get rough, you're like, I'll just turn around and go back, then you're not going to get where you're trying to go. And you're just going to do it again, or at least it's very likely you're just going to do it again next time you're facing the same challenge. You're just going to turn around and go, well, I've got this backup plan. Right? So we create this out for ourselves and it demotivates us. It takes away our sense of persistence and sticking with something and really working hard to get what we want. And as you know, probably by this point in your life, and if you don't know, I suggest that you figure it out. Most of the things that are worth anything take work and investment and time and energy, right? You've got to burn up resources to get the things that you want that are actually of value. And many times if you get something that doesn't take some work, you don't value it very much. It's just the natural way of things. It's the way people tend to think in many cases. Now, you might come up with a couple of examples where you're like, well, no, I got this thing for free and I really love it and I really appreciate it. That's awesome. But generally, if you don't have skin in the game, you probably don't appreciate it all that much. So actually, the harder we work for something, the more proud we are of our accomplishment, the more confidence we build. Now, I see quite a few things in my life through the prism of confidence. I want to be as confident about things as I possibly can be. I want to feel good about the things I'm doing. I want to believe in myself. I want to know that the path that I'm on is the right path, or at least the right path for now. It's the best possible path that I can have. How is this going to affect confidence? And it doesn't mean it's the sole consideration. There's so many other things that matter to me. I care very much about truth in the world, discovering what the objective truth is underlying something. The truth, no matter what anybody thinks about it, that's important to me. To me, it's very important to live up to the standards that I set for myself, whether they're standards based on values, whether they're standards based on any other number of things. That's just how I view life. That's how I view things. And chances are you view things in a certain way based on however it is you think, in much the same way for the things that matter to you. So think about this idea of having a backup plan for the things that you get into. You start a business and you're like, if this doesn't work out, I'll jump back to my old job, right? And then when you start the business and you start working through it and things get rough and tough, and generally speaking, for almost anybody who's an entrepreneur, you know that things don't always work out and generally are not always easy in the sense that stuff comes up. It's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's just not. I mean, you're doing practically every job at the beginning as a quote unquote solopreneur, the only one doing all the things. And even as you hire people or pay people to do some of the things you don't want to do or can't do well, or just to get time back, even as you pay people to do things, it's still tough. You're on all the time. I mean, your brain never shuts down. You're always thinking about your business. And it's a beautiful thing, right? Because it's yours. So you want to be thinking about it all the time. It's not like if you have a 9-to-5 job and you work for somebody and you get paid a paycheck and you're kind of like, all right, man, when I'm off of work, I am off. I'm turning it off. I want to go to my family. When you have your own business, it's part of your life. It's completely mixed in and intertwined with the rest of your life. There's no work-life balance when you are an entrepreneur and you have a business. And anyone who's figured out how to do that, we got to talk, all right? Because to me, it's not a balance. It's part of your life. My business, Free Minds Thrive, my business is me. It is me. It's part of me. It's an extension of me. It's built off of what I believe and how I want to serve people and how I know I can help people. It is really, really important to me. So of course I'm going to be thinking about it. Even when I'm not technically at work or working, my brain is always going, right? Now, if I didn't believe in what I was doing, and if I told myself it's okay to go back to your 9-to-5 that you had for almost 2 decades, it's okay to go back to that kind of job. If I have to do that, if that's what it comes down to in a certain situation, to put food on the table and to take care of my family, or it just fails, either way, if I ever have to do it, I have to make that choice, right? I have to do it. So there's nothing wrong with it. But there is something that happens when we tell ourselves that that is a possibility if things get too tough. I don't want to believe that I go back and take a route that I didn't want to take and still don't want to take. I don't want to go back to the 9-to-5 if I can make my business work, right? If I can keep growing it and I can scale it and I can expand it in new ways. And if it doesn't work, maybe I can figure out another business that works in much the same way that I wanted to build this business out. So the idea here is if I have an out, then I might give up at the first or second or third sign of difficulty, of challenge, of pushback, of quote unquote failure. If failure strikes in my business, or whatever I may perceive to be failure, I don't generally see things that way, but eventually your business might come to a point where you're like, this didn't work. Now what? Well, do you double down? Do you figure out what's really going on? Do you think about the possibilities and the things you haven't tried yet? What do you do at that point? Well, some people give up, and a lot of small businesses fail. A lot of entrepreneurs fail in trying to do what they're trying to do. Okay, that happens. Maybe some people were not meant to be business owners. They weren't meant to be a visionary inside of their own company. Maybe they're built better to go work for somebody and do amazing work there. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that entrepreneurship is right for everybody, and if you don't do it, something's wrong with you. What I'm saying is if you choose an entrepreneurial path. And then things get difficult and you give up because you're like, all right, I have other options. You gave yourself an out, much like the relationship example I brought up. If it wasn't for the fact that I tell myself there's no other way but to build the best freaking relationship with my wife that I possibly can, no matter what comes up, to figure it out with her, how we're going to make this amazing. Because the grass is not always greener on the other side. We know that, right? At the very least, you should get what you want. And if she's the woman I want, and she's the one I want to make it work with, we've got to figure out how to make that work despite what might come up for either of us or for both of us. There can't be another way. If there is, one of us would have left already, and this never would have worked. And chances are the next relationship wouldn't have worked, and then the next one wouldn't have worked, and then the next one wouldn't have worked. When you get in and you're serious, especially when you exchange that ring and you make that promise, that oath, that I am in this for the long haul, if that is the way you decide to go about it in that relationship, there can't be an out. Because an out means you're going to give up. You start a business, there can't be an out. Because an out means you're going to give up. In almost anything you do, you don't want to have an out where you're going to give up. Could you have an exit plan, an emergency plan, or this or that? Sure. I'm not saying, never think of an alternative to what you have to do. Keep marching forward, even if you're entering into the deep abyss of hell and fire and brimstone, and you're going to get burned to death and tortured for the rest of eternity. Keep walking because that's what you said you were going to do. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if you have thought about it, reflected on it, contemplated this path you want to take, if you know it feels right, if you have a burning desire and passion to achieve this thing, accomplish this thing, obtain this thing, you can't give yourself an out until it's necessary to do so, because it changes your mindset. Again, I know this because I've lived through things, and my two best examples are my business and that, but there's more. I've had some health scares. Any of you out there, have you ever had a health scare? Ever had a situation that scared you when you went to the doctor or got a test back or whatever it is? You come back and you're like, oh my God, this is scary. And you might look for the easy answers. You might look to ignore it or pretend it didn't happen or dismiss it or whatever it is. You might look for quick answers, right? You might look for hey, give me a quick pill from the pharmacy that will just solve this problem. And of course, the pills almost never do. They almost always cause more problems because you're not getting to the root cause of the thing. So I faced a challenge once where I had full-blown insomnia. This is years and years ago. I had full-blown insomnia, and it was one of the scariest times of my life. It was a living nightmare. I share this story openly because I know that a lot of other people face this challenge too, and I want you to know that there's hope. And I want you to know that if you are devoted to resolving the issue, you absolutely can, but you have to believe you can, and you have to be committed to doing it without making excuses, right? Without making any excuses. It's like if your late night habit of being on a screen, playing video games, watching movies, drinking coffee late in the day, not getting enough sunlight during the day, eating junk food that is affecting your body and your hormones, taking on too many things and not dealing with those stressful situations and affecting your hormones, affecting your cortisol levels, all these different things you may be doing or some things not doing that are affecting your sleep and impacting it. It takes work to realign those things, especially once you get to the point I was at. And I was at a point where I had full-blown insomnia. I'm talking, I can't fall asleep, even if I try. And of course, as anyone out there who's being honest with themselves knows, you don't try to fall asleep. You just fall asleep. You don't have to make yourself fall asleep. It just happens. You lay there, you have thoughts going on, and eventually your brain takes over, transitions you into la la land, and you are dreaming. You're in dreamland, right? And you take it for granted. Even if you go to bed late and you're like, I'm not going to get enough hours of sleep, you still fall asleep at some point. Even if it takes you a little while, you still fall asleep at some point. Even if you wake up in the middle of the night and it's tough to fall back asleep, usually if you lay there for a while and it's still middle of the night, you'll probably fall back asleep. Some people can't and they stay up. And that's the beginning of the problem. There's a problem if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't fall back asleep. Something's wrong, right? When I faced that, it was so scary, and the answers I was getting for what to do about it, what was going on, weren't good enough for me because I can feel inside of myself that something wasn't right. And yet, everything seemed to be okay. Doctor's like, everything checks out, you just need to relax more and do some yoga. But it really wasn't that. There was something deeper going on, and I discovered that as I doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, I went all in plus some. And I said, no matter what it takes, I must get my sleep back and get better sleep than I've gotten before. Meaning, I don't ever want this to happen again. Doesn't mean I'm always going to get perfect sleep. Doesn't mean I expect to. But I never, ever want to close my eyes again and not be able to fall into sleep. That was scary. And it wasn't just for one night, guys. It was for well over a week. It was scary. Just imagine one bad night's sleep. You wake up the next day. If you're an adult, right? If you're over 30, you understand this. You wake up and you're like, oh my God, that was horrible. I didn't get enough sleep. Now imagine getting no sleep. And not just for one day, not for 2 days, not for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but longer. Scary. Scary. And I discovered the things that were impacting it. I don't know exactly which thing was weighted higher in terms of its impact on me not getting sleep, but I know that I did all the things I had to do. I completely transformed my day life in so many different ways and changed habits and changed my lifestyle in some ways. And I was already generally a healthy person. Obviously not healthy enough because something like that happened. And for those of you out there dealing with your own health problems, you know what I'm talking about. You're obviously not healthy enough because something's going on, right? So, there shouldn't be those types of issues in the body, these chronic problems. When there's something underlying it that we haven't taken care of. And oftentimes we cover that up and complicate the issue by popping pills from pharmaceutical companies that do not even claim to cure a problem, but just cover things up. I don't want to cover things up. I want to get better. So I didn't use the cheap route. I didn't use the easy route, the quote-unquote easy route, which I don't think would have actually been easier, but it appears to be. I didn't pop the pills, right? I tried some melatonin first, and I was like, this doesn't work, and I know it doesn't work, so why am I doing it? I was just scared. I needed something. And I was like, no, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give myself the easy way. I'm going to give myself the right way. I'm going to make this happen. I'm not going to live like this forever. This is not going to be something that takes over my life. And it started to feel like it was. I saw no out, especially as I got less and less sleep. But I kept my positive mind and I stayed in control and I stayed practical and logical and rational and reasonable. And I said, now hold on. Even though I can't think straight entirely and something's obviously going on, I could figure this out. There's no other way. There is no other way. I'm not going to just live with this. Some people accept labels based on their conditions. I did not accept a label. Now, if you do, I'm not judging you, although I do think it's a mistake. Okay? So I'm not judging you, but I have my opinions. And I think it's a mistake to take on labels that basically formalize and affirm a condition that nobody wants, right? It's like I have this condition and now I'm part of a community. No, it's not part of a damn community. Something's wrong. Get away from it. Get away from that community as fast as possible. Now, obviously, seeking support and trying to find answers, that's one thing. But don't call it a community. But we're all dealing with the same thing. We're together in this. No, I don't want to be together with anybody having insomnia problems. I want far away from the insomnia problems. So, again, I understand this is not a perspective a lot of people take. You want to feel like you're not alone. You want to feel like someone else has the answers. But nobody else has the answers. That's why they still have the problem. You get it? If somebody still has the problem, they're still in that community. They're not coming back in after they've left the community to help and serve that community from the outside looking in. They're still in it. They're not people I want to be part of a community with. I want to be part of a community of problem solvers. I want to be part of a community of people who take control of situations, relentlessly pursuing their best possible life. So while I had insomnia, I was never an insomniac. You understand? You see what I'm saying? While I had insomnia, I couldn't fall asleep. I couldn't stay asleep. If I woke up in the middle of the night, there was no going back to bed. While I had that, I was not an insomniac. I was not going to put a label on something I didn't even want to be a part of. Instead, I said the only option is getting out of this, getting to the root cause and fixing it. And of course, as many of us know who have taken control of our lives, as many of us know who seek the truth in the world and really, truly are trying to understand what the truth is in the world, the way things really work, the way things really operate, so that we can be in control of our own lives, armed with knowledge, armed with experience, whether it's our experience or the experiences of others that we have learned through vicariously, armed with wisdom. Armed with wisdom. We know that nobody's coming to save us. Nobody can do the work for us, especially if we have our own path that we're carving out. And so knowing that that's the case, knowing that nobody's coming to save me, knowing that nobody seemed to have the answers to get out of this thing, I had to go and I had to find answers all around, sprinkled about, fragments of information. I had to piece it all together and say, here's my plan. And if it doesn't work, I'll modify it. I'll come up with another plan. Why? Because I am not going to have this problem that came up, this insomnia. I am not going to have this suddenly now is my life forever. I'm going to figure it out. The relentless pursuit of the only option I will accept, the thing I really want, and nothing else. Now, if I don't get it, I can at least say I tried. If you out there listening to my voice, if you set yourself on a path, on a course, and you say, this is the only way, this is what I want, this is what I desire, this is where I want to go, and I will not take any other answer as an answer. I will not take any other path as a possibility. This is where I'm going, and that's that. If you adopt this, that doesn't mean it's definitely going to work. You may find yourself coming to a point where you're like, wow, I really gave that my all. I really thought I could do this. I put it all in, man. I put everything on the line. Maybe I'm just not thinking about it right? Because there's still always a possibility, guys. I truly believe that. There must be a reason I'm drawn towards this. There must be a reason I chose this. What am I not seeing? What am I not hearing? What have I not considered? What have I not tried? There's got to be something. And you keep hashing it out and perfecting it and polishing it, chiseling away at that block to find the perfect form of it. And then you say, maybe you get to a point where this really isn't going to work out. Maybe what's going to work out is going to be different than what you expected. It's a possibility. But at least you never gave yourself another way. And now that you're standing there, you have a choice to make. Now, perhaps, I have to find another way. Now, I'm backed against a wall. There is no other way. I tried it. I'm at a dead end. Where else am I going to go? At least, guys, you can't tell yourself that you failed because you tried your best and you went all the way through with no other options on the table. You were totally and completely and all in. How then could you blame yourself if you come to a point where you have to now go, all right, I got to pick another path. There's got to be another way. There's got to be another option now. What's the next preferred option? What's the next best option? Where do I go from here? But leading up to that, you gave it your all. Well, now you can't regret anything because there's nothing you did wrong. You tried it. It didn't work out. Now find something else that's going to work out. Now find something that might even be better and that you just didn't realize was the way to go. Maybe now you'll recognize something different now that you've been through that experience. Like, you know what? That was cool to try and I'm glad I did it all. And wow, that took a lot of time, energy, money, whatever. But you know what? I still learn things, right? There's still lessons I learned along the way. There's things I can carry forward now. I can teach others. I can keep in my own mind to help myself. I did everything I could, but I also learned things. I did things. It wasn't a waste. And by being all in the entire time, you gave it the best chance. Now, here's the people who have a problem. Big problem. It's the people who gave themselves an easy out somewhere in the middle of the process before they really went all in and tried to make something happen. It's the person who really didn't try to make the relationship work out all the way because they always thought in the back of their head, I could always run away. I could always go another route. I could always leave. No, you didn't give it your best. And I hope someday you don't find yourself regretting that you didn't really try. I know because I talk to a lot of people about this stuff. That is what happens for a lot of people. They look back 10, 15, 20, 30 years later and they go, man, I probably could have stuck with that and made it work. That's brutal. Do you agree out there, listeners? On the other end of this microphone, sometime in the future, in a future present moment. Do you agree? What do you think about this? Thinking about your own life as I'm speaking, thinking about your things. Have you gone all in on the things you really want or have wanted in the past? What would it have looked like if you went all in? What would it have looked like if there was no out and no other option and no way? What could you have made happen? If you're facing a challenge right now in your life, if you're facing a big decision right now, if you're trying to decide how deep to go into something, how hard to try for something right now at this moment, what does this conversation mean for you? And if you're like, I don't have anything like this, you will. And I hope you choose to go all in with no other way out except to get where you're trying to go, to achieve what you're trying to achieve, to obtain what you're trying to obtain, to get it, so that you don't regret down the line in the future, which is a massive, deeply rooted, deeply seated, painful regret to have in the future, is that I wish I went all in on that thing while I was there doing it. I wish I went all in. I can tell you from my personal experience that I do not regret for even an instant. I do not regret going all in on my relationship with my high school sweetheart, who is my wife today and the mother of my amazing, beautiful, incredible daughter, the greatest gift I've ever received in this world. I do not regret that at all. I can say that confidently. Very, very confidently. I can say that I do not regret going all in building my own business after leaving an almost 20-year career. A 20-year career I loved. Really enjoyed it while I was there. And when I came to a crossroads and had to make a decision about whether to continue on in that kind of career, try some other new type of career working for somebody and building out, their empire and their business and their vision, or starting my own thing and trying to do something that, quite frankly, a lot of people around me said is going to be challenging and it might not work. And are you sure you want to do that? And yes, I was. And I have no regrets for that. Right? I'm all in, baby. I am all in and I'm going to make it work. And if I find myself staring at a massive titanium impenetrable wall at the dead end of the path I took, and I'm like, there is no other way. Wow, I really tried this and I can't believe it. It didn't work. At least I won't have regrets. And now I have all that information from my experience and the things I've learned. I have all that information to carry forward with me for the next decisions I decide to make, for the next path that I decide to take. I've learned a lot with no regrets. So guys, I am imploring you, encouraging you, hopefully in some ways inspiring you and empowering you to go all in on the things you really want with no way out. And if down the road, after you have done everything in your power and you're facing a wall, if you have to turn around and find another way, so be it. But at least you went all in. And for the most part, for most of you in most situations, you are going to build incredible fortitude, incredible resilience, and confidence going all in on the things you want, even if it's tough, especially if it's tough, because that is what builds strong, capable people. Hard times, tough times, difficult challenges that you overcome, problems that you solve, seemingly impossible situations that you get through and thrive from. So, what's it going to be? Are you all in? Or are you half in, half out, ready to make one of the biggest mistakes of your life that you may regret in the future. There's nothing wrong with changing paths, guys. There's nothing wrong with changing your plan. But make sure you're not doing it because you're looking for the easy or cheap or simplest way out. Make sure you really, really want to go the other way. And if not, I'm going to ask you, what else have you not considered, not tried to make it work? Because if that's what you really want, and you only have this one life to live in exactly the way that you're living this life, meaning you might say, oh, I live forever. I believe we live forever. Okay, that's fine, but you'll never be here again in exactly this time and exactly these moments. My hope for all of you is that you reach the end of your life and you look back and you say, I am proud of the life I lived. I'm proud of the legacy I'm leaving behind, and I don't have any major regrets. Now, chances are you're going to look back and there's some things you're going to be like, I wish I did that differently. But either way, if you do things the way we're talking about here, the way that I am proposing, you will find that those biggest things that tend to be the greatest, most powerful regrets that people have, that really take them down, and that if you do this, you won't have as many of those, if any at all. And you could at least say, I tried my best. But that means being truthful with yourself and being honest as to whether or not you did actually try your best. Because if you didn't, you're just fooling yourself, and you're bound to make the same mistakes over. Don't forget, too, that you are a role model to somebody. Somebody's looking up to you, whether you know it or not. And if they're not looking up to you, somebody's watching you. They're learning from you. They're learning how you handle life, especially if you have kids. They are watching you, even if you don't think they are. And you are teaching them whether or not you should have an easy out or go all in for the things you desire out of this life and out of this world. I would like to see you thrive. I would like to see you get most of the things that you want and feel good about the work you put in to get it, to be proud of yourself. And so I hope you'll consider what we talked about today. I hope it meant something to you. At the very least, if you don't agree with some or most or all of what I said, I hope that it got you thinking, so you can make sure that you are clear and confident about the way you're deciding to live this life. And if what I said impacted you in some positive way, gave you some ideas, reiterated or reinforced something for you, then I did my job, and this episode was worth it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Truly honored to have you spend some of your life and some of your time listening to me and letting my ideas enter into your mind and your soul so you can consider them. And I will see you in the next episode of Free Minds Thrive. If you guys need more information on any of the coaching that I offer, the online coaching for adults, the online coaching in classes for teenagers, and any of the other things that we do at Free Minds Thrive, go ahead and check it out at www.freemindsthrive.com. And if you want to go straight to my coaching page to see how I might be able to help you, please go to www.freemindsthrive.coach. Or you can just go to freemindsthrive.com and you'll find the link in there. All right, guys, if you have any questions for me, I hope you know where to reach me. Give me a shout out on social media, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, whatever it is. I'll be happy to connect with you and have a conversation. Take care, guys. Until the next one.